You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynne Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Friday the 3rd of August. Illegals deported after working in the Olympic Stadium in Coventry. Rochdale grooming gang leader gets a good deal in soft-touch British justice. Honour-killing parents found guilty of her murder. House of Lords report from Nick Griffin, MEP. Kurdish rebels attack government forces in Turkey again. 3 non-Arab Muslim terrorists arrested in Spain. Thought for the day, rape trials, one law for one and one for others. And finally, a space probe called Curiosity. UK news. 2 illegal immigrant security guards have been deported after being caught whilst working for the Olympics. The 2 men who took British jobs from British people were caught working at the stadium in Coventry. Aged 21 and 24, both men from Pakistan had overstayed their visas and were noticed by the border agency in a check on staff at the stadium. The 21-year-old was working for East Midlands Security, which was being subcontracted by G4S. Both men are now back home in Pakistan. A World at 8 writer has commented, "Has East Midlands Security been fined? I bet not." One of the victims of the Rochdale Muslim grooming gang leader is angry that her attacker, Shabir Ahmed, has been given a soft sentence. The Muslim paedophile, aged 59, raped young white girls under 16 years old. The judge was also slammed by the victims for allowing such a ridiculous sentence to be passed by him. 22 years were added to his already light sentence of 19 years after being found guilty of repeatedly raping another minor. However, being served concurrently, that means really only 3 years was added to his sentence. Shabir was found guilty of raping a young girl and sharing her around his friends at his flat above his takeaway shop. A World at 8 reporter commented, "These takeaway shops really live up to their name, don't they? You can get food and sex takeaways, if you're a Muslim, apparently." Iftikhar, 52, and Fazana Ahmed, 49, the parents of Shafilia Ahmed, have been found guilty of her murder at Chester Crown Court today. The 17-year-old girl went missing from her home in Warrington, Cheshire in 2003 and her skeletonized remains were found on the banks of the River Kent in Cumbria 6 months later. Her parents denied her murder and the trial has been beset with accusations, lies and misinformation within the Ahmed family group. Shafilia's parents suffocated her with a plastic bag shoved down her throat in front of their other children in an apparent honour killing. It is reported that as Mr Ahmed was taken down to the cells, he swore at police officers. Mr Justice Roderick Evans said he would pass sentence at 14:15 hours today. Now we have Nick Griffin, MEP, on his recent visit to the House of Lords.
The Brussels School for Tax Gobblers and Eliminators of Freedom has broken up for its summer holes. But I did get up to one bit of specifically parliamentary business this week. On Monday afternoon, I nipped into the Houses of Parliament, as you do. To be more specific, I went into the House of Lords. I would have gone into the House of Commons too, but they passed a special law just so as to stop me doing so. You see, up until June 2009, any MEP from anywhere in Europe had the right to go into any national parliament in any member state, including the House of Treason, which is slowly sinking into the soft mud on the north bank of the River Thames. But as soon as I was elected, by far more voters, by the way, than are represented by any Westminster MP, the same hysterical bigotry that produced the Question Time lynch mob also led to a change in the law, specifically aimed at keeping me out of the Houses of Parliament. To their credit, the folk in charge at the House of Lords refused to go along with the bizarre and undemocratic shenanigans in what they refer to as the other place. As a result, any MEP can obtain a pass giving full access to Pigeon's stately pile, except for the bits occupied by the House of Commons. To get in there, you see, one now has to have a personal invitation from a Member of Parliament. Thus, MEPs from the Lib Lab Con mainstream can get in at the drop of a hat. Even the Greens can get in to discuss the advancement of their carbon hysteria plan to deindustrialise Britain, but yours truly cannot. Still, now that I've collected my pass to the House of Lords end, I will go back in the autumn and do a few days writing in one of its many quiet corners. Who knows, I may even run into John Prescott or renew my acquaintance with the lovely Baroness Warsi. This time, however, I pretty much had the place to myself, and I can tell you that the inside of the Houses of Parliament is way, way more atmospheric and impressive than the slightly wedding cakey exterior. The heavy wooden panelling, deep rich leather and the leaded glasswork simply exude history, Statues of past great parliamentarians vie for space on mantelpieces or in niches, with quirky things like a preserved tobacco leaf. There are magnificent paintings showing different pivotal moments in the historic development of our freedom and our democracy. Here are not in Frankie Boyle's one-dimensional sub-Marxist, because Marx railed against what he called the idiocy of rural life and welcomed industrialisation as the forerunner of world revolution. Olympics pageant is a real chunk of our history and heritage. Which, of course, is why David Cameron, another sub-Marxist, though his camouflage is rather better than Boyle's, is only going through the motions of opposing its reform, that's destruction to us normal folk on the outside, in order to placate what remains of the Tory party's shrivelling grassroots. Hundreds upon hundreds of years of history, struggle and dedicated service have given our Houses of Parliament a power and majesty that not even the last 50 years of treason, greed and ruinous folly have yet been able to extinguish. I've spent 3 years now, on and off, in the sterile concrete and glass monstrosity that houses the doomed federalist experiment in Brussels. While there, I'm always conscious of my duty to our voters and the activists who sent me there to be their eyes and ears and voice. I have a job to do there, but I've never felt it a privilege to be there, and have certainly never felt any kinship or identification with those who've gone before me. But oh my, how different it is in our House of Lords. Don't get me wrong, I'm no great believer in unelected power, though I have to say that the old Lords, who were there because their great-great-great-great-great-grandmother had slept with Charles II, were overall a far, far better lot than the shower who are now there because they slipped the Labour Party a quick million. Because, for all that the old elite's theft of the Commons of England was every bit as greedy and even more destructive than the present-day neoliberal privatisation rip-off, the men whose spirits can still be felt in the corridors of the Palace of Westminster were men, first Englishmen and then Britons. Not British people, as the PC label insists, but Britons, and proud to be so. Hence I felt truly privileged to walk in their footsteps and to be able to gaze, without being herded along by a tour guide, at the heavy carved beams of the Great Hall that they all knew so well. As far as I know, I'm the first member of my family to have set foot there since a very distant ancestor, John Bagot, who sat as MP for Staffordshire back in 1477. His great-grandfather, by the way, fought with Henry V at Agincourt, which I reckon makes up for the fact that his lot came over with William the Bastard in 1066. Between him and me rest, I hope in peace, some generations of black country brickmakers and miners. I think that every nationalist should make the effort to trace their own family tree, because it makes you and yours even more aware of our ancestral right to our land, and our duty to strain every sinew to pass it on, intact, or even better, to future generations of the same great bloodlines. Nobleman or miner, merchant or brickmaker, farmer or labourer, it doesn't matter what you find in your family tree, because every one of them helped to build this land. Every one of them helped in some way to keep it free. Every one of them was one of Shakespeare's band of brothers. So find your roots and be proud of them, for we are the people who gave the world not just the Industrial Revolution, or even, of note at present, so many of its most popular sports. We also gave the world freedom, democracy, and equality before the law. All are in peril now, but they only even exist because my people, your people, our people, conceived them, fought for them, and gave them as dearly bought and most precious gifts to all of mankind. No nation can say more, no nation has done more, and no nation still has so much to do as ours. That's why this present dark time will pass, because our story is not at its end. We're simply called upon to turn the page and to write a new chapter in the book of Albion.
Thank you, Nick, for your very informative and interesting commentary on the proud Britons who once graced the halls of Westminster. World news. Troubles in southeast Turkey erupted again this week, with more bloodshed, it has been reported from Ankara. The Turks claim the Kurdish rebels attacked Turkish military units with mortars and rocket-propelled grenades on Tuesday in southeast Turkey, killing 8 soldiers and 18 rebels. Another 16 soldiers were wounded in the attack in the Dalisha area of the Hakkari province, which borders northern Iraq's Kurdish areas, the governor's office in Hakkari reported. Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan, speaking to reporters in Mexico, where he is attending a Group 20 summit, said his government was determined to press ahead with the fight against the PKK until the end, and repeated a call on the group to lay down arms. 3 non-Arab Muslim terrorists have been arrested in Spain. A Russian, a Chechen and a Turk were detained in La Línea de la Concepción, where they had lived for 2 months. Explosives were found in a flat in La Línea, although how much has not been released. Spanish intelligence has said that the Muslims were trying to organise bomb plots at key targets in Spain and throughout Europe. It is rumoured that they were training at paragliding venues, but this has not been substantiated. They are all suspected of being part of the Al-Qaeda network. Thought for the day. Rape trials, one law for one and not for others. Rape is a nasty crime. It has nothing to do with a girl's or a woman's desirability or even availability. It is based on power and control and opportunity. Rape was the reward for soldiers for hundreds of years. That, looting, rape and pillage. Rape is a double-edged sword. It harms the victim in many ways, by reputation and also obviously physically. It assumes the term paedophilia when underage girls or children are raped or assaulted. Altogether a very unpleasant and up to now mostly unreported crime. Today at least some rapists are coming to trial, but who presides over the sentencing? How are the perpetrators affected by their sentences, and are some sentences fair? Take the case of the Rochdale Muslim groomers and their leader Shabir Ahmed, 59. For an additional rape he got another 22 years put on his already light 19-year sentence, but to be served concurrently, which means in real terms just 3 more years on his original sentence. This means he could possibly be out within 7 years, back home in his community, visiting his mosque and probably taking up the family business yet again. Now take the case of Josie Ottaway, 21 years old, white, middle class and educated. Her attacker, Adam Willis, was white, middle class and educated and found guilty of rape. He was sentenced to 7 years. Josie quite rightly felt this was not adequate and appealed. Her appeal was upheld and the sentence extended to 10 years. And he probably will serve all 10 years in prison, quite rightly. Josie has bravely waived her right to anonymity in order to publicise this crime. Now I'm not a judge, but I would think the case of multiple rapes on underage girls by scores of men is rather worse than being raped by one man. I may be wrong. Both crimes are abhorrent, but I believe the leader of the Rochdale gang, who may be responsible for many more unreported crimes against underage girls and his cohorts, should have received a much heavier sentence. Not because he's a Muslim, but because they have all been getting away with this sort of crime for many years, and they obviously feel little or no guilt at all about what they do. I was under the impression that it was feeling sorry and guilty for what you did that affected the sentence and the way the judge and jury looked upon the perpetrator. In no instance have any of these men given the impression that they are sorry, ergo a much heavier sentence please. Then we have the illegal rapist, as if you can ever have a legal one. This is the case of a Sudanese asylum seeker, now 28, who raped a girl of 12 in 2005 and has been allowed to stay in the UK because it would breach his human rights if he was deported back to the Sudan. Now, the fact that Sani Adil Ali raped a white Hungarian girl while staying with the girl's family for 5 days might throw some light on the way the courts are going nowadays. He's black and Muslim and was given refugee status just a few days before the attack. Ali, from the Darfur region of the Sudan, arrived in the UK in 2003 and was granted refugee status in 2005. The victim's family had offered to put him up whilst he visited a friend, Kamel Ahmed, in Middlesbrough. Apparently they all knew the girl's family from refugee camps in France and Italy. Ali cannot go back because he is from the Zaghawa tribe, who are non-Arab but Muslim, and he might be persecuted. So he received a 3-year jail sentence in 2005 and got out in 2008 and got his appeal going. So he's done his time and he is still here. What justice is there for that child? Apart from the fact we should not allow anyone, and I mean anyone, into this country from now on, and I mean all incomers from Europe, Africa, India, Pakistan, Thailand, Philippines, anybody, anytime, not here. I mean non-Muslims, Muslims, Buddhists, Sikhs, anyone of any religion. We are just too full up and our justice system is going down the pan. Our prisons are full of immigrants despite the official figures, our crime rates are soaring with immigrants and one can see the instance of sexual groomings, underage child rape and just rape are on the increase. This is in a country where our young girls are not sheltered. They walk the streets, literally in some cases, and are ripe for pickings at school. The justice system seems to be heavily biased against the complainee, which is not new, probably owing to the old adage, woman can run faster with skirts up than man with pants down, and the old male school thing of women and hysteria. Or she was asking for it brigade. Now I'm not a woman's libber, but I can see that a child of 12 or even a baby of 3 could hardly be asking for it. We must accept in this country that if we allow certain peoples with certain cultures to stay here, they should adapt to our way of life, not we adapt to theirs. In the Muslim culture, child marriage and sexual slavery are allowed. In Africa, child rape and baby rape is allowed. In India, child marriages are allowed. In Pakistan, little boys are put into brothels for men of that persuasion. It is allowed. But it should not be allowed in England. We in the UK have always had our own rapists, buggerers, sodomites, child rapists and paedophiles. Surely we do not need to import this scum from other countries around the world. Although ethnicity has not been reported, over 400 sex offenders set free in the past 3 years have gone on to commit more rapes. We need a proper message to go out to these guys. Ahmed should have a 25-year sentence without appeal, and incorporating Sharia law should be made to pay monetary reparations to the families of those he abused. Willis should serve his 10 years without appeal. Ali should be castrated and sent back to the Sudan. There, harsh, but fair, I feel. There are many cases of girls and women screaming rape for publicity and money. But there again, there are many youngsters out there who are simply too terrified or too ashamed to come out into the open, and that is where these bastards win. These judges who sit in judgment, especially on the Rochdale grooming scandals, should be ashamed. They're letting down their own people, but things have a way of coming back, and the mills of God grind exceeding slow, but exceeding fine. I cannot wait for the day when our lawgivers are not frightened of the establishment, but can think for themselves. That will be a good day for England and the English. And finally, a space buggy called Curiosity is about to make a big landing on Mars. The buggy is about the size of a car and is equipped with all the latest gadgets to discover the mystery planet. Its journey started last November and will arrive on planet Mars on Monday. It travelled 560 million kilometres to get to its destination, travelling at high speed. Curiosity will be discovering deep craters on Mars to see if there was any life on the planet. This presenter says, well, I hope they do not find large cities and no people, because that could point out our future, if we carry on as we humans do. Let us hope they just find red sand. You have been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynne Mozart, and I and the team at World at 8 with Radio Britain wish you all a very sunny and dry weekend.